Hi everyone and welcome to Shaluso. Obviously right now everyone is going crazy for Baselworld, which is going on at the time of filming this. But today we're going to be looking at the hero from Baselworld 2010. That's right, we have a Hulk.
Now, for those of you who are new to watches or who perhaps have been living under a rock for the last 9 years, this watch is not the result of clever product placement in a movie about an irradiated gamma scientist with anger management issues. No. The 116610 LV Submariner date gets its nickname from the super case combined with the combination of green bezel and green sunburst dial. Released in 2010, this was a first for the Rolex Submariner range, a colored dial and matching Cerachrom bezel on a stainless steel Submariner, and the first Rolex ever to feature the combination of green on green in terms of bezel and color. And it was also the second Rolex ever to feature a green bezel, the first one being 2005's 50th anniversary of the Submariner, nicknamed the Kermit. But it's that dial that really makes the Hulk stand out. Ranging from a dark forest green to a nice bright green depending on how the light hits it, this dial really makes for a special moment every time you look at it. And it is one of the reasons why it is such a sought after watch. But aside from its vermilion tendencies, this is a run-of-the-mill Submariner in terms of design. 40 millimeters in diameter, Mercedes hands, Cyclops eye, stainless steel finish, all in satin, with the exception of the flanks and the side of the bracelet, which are all polished, and that green bezel rendered in ceramic, or Cerachrome as Rolex calls it, and of course that classic Rolex Submariner look. A look that gives it plenty of versatility and presence, and that's instantly recognizable on the wrist. Speaking of its presence on the wrist, the Submariner is actually surprisingly thin. At 12.8 millimeters thick, it'll fit under nearly every jacket sleeve and shirt cuff, and that versatility has allowed it to transcend from being just a dive watch and into something that can be worn comfortably with business and formal attire. Now, we can't talk about fit or wearability without mentioning Glide Lock. The system, originally designed as a dive extension, it allows you to add or remove up to 20 millimeters of length to the bracelet without using any tools or removing or adding any links. This allows you to get the perfect fit even if your wrist does swell up when it gets hot. This combined with the Oyster Lock, and yes, that is Oyster Lock, not Flip Lock, don't confuse it with what's on the Sea Dweller. This allows it to be extremely secure, and you'll see that it doesn't actually come up unless you actually make the purposeful action to open it and disengage it. This is what makes the bracelet and the clasp pretty much the standards of the dive watch segment, and it is the measure that most watches will aspire to reach, and very few actually manage to supersede. And it's refreshing to know that this level of ergonomic quality that Rolex built its reputation on is still a priority for them. Rolex uses its tried and true 3135 caliber. In use since 1988, this 28,000 vibration per hour, 48-hour power reserve, automatic winding movement with date and hacking seconds is a testament to Rolex's engineering. That over 30 years ago they could make a movement and it would still run today with minimal modifications really is a testament to their ability as a watchmaker. And despite its ever ascending status as a luxury item, this is still a functional tool watch. With 300 meters water resistance, this watch is still capable to do what it was originally designed to do. And with new details like the Cerachrom bezel, anti-magnetic and anti-shock properties added to the movement, the trip lock crown, and of course that amazing glide lock that we mentioned before, it all means that this is a Rolex capable of taking any type of punishment. But let's get back now to what we were talking about, it being a luxury product, and luxury is all about the details. So those hands and those indices that you see sweeping across that beautiful green dial, that's white gold. And Rolex uses that to make sure that the indices and hands don't tarnish over time. The font on the date, magnified under the Cyclops eye, is perfectly crisp and very easy to read. And the numbers etched into that beautiful scratch-proof Cerachrom bezel, well, they're PVD coated in platinum. And that steel may just be a satin finish across most of the watch, but that's not just any steel. That's 904L oyster steel, Rolex's own proprietary steel alloy that they use that holds a polish better and is more corrosion resistant. Well, maybe we should talk about the fact that Rolex not only gets its watches certified by COSC, but it then tests them in-house to within plus or minus 2 seconds a day to reach that superlative chronometer status. and then they laser etch the Rolex crown just above the 6 o'clock as a security measure. This isn't even visible to the naked eye in most cases. You need a loupe or a macro lens to even be able to see it. And then all along the ray heart of the watch, they have your serial number and Rolex engraved just as an additional anti-counterfeiting measure. And even that clasp that I've spoken so much about, they took the time to sandblast the interior of it just so they could have a little bit more contrasting finish on the oyster steel. Whatever you may think about Rolex, the people who buy them, or their secondhand market value, you can't deny they make a hell of a watch.
Now this watch is still one of the hottest watches around. Despite being well over 9 years old at this point, it is still going to keep being a legend. And hopefully this review has shown you a little bit of a reason as to why. As for my overall impression, well, here are my 3 pros and cons that I find in the Submariner Hulk. So the first thing I want to highlight about the Hulk is not its bezel, but instead its dial. The way that it captures the light and it ranges from that nice bright green down to a forest green or even a black if you don't have much light hitting on it, it really is something to behold. And when you have especially sunlight or a nice light to shine on it, you can just spend minutes or even hours just looking at it and turning and playing around with it. While I was filming this review, while yes it was a pain to try and get the right angle sometimes and not get reflections, whenever you got the light just right, you saw all those beautiful different hues. So it really is something worth highlighting it, and definitely an advantage over a regular Submariner. The second pro of it is that this is a statement watch that delivers on its statement. Regardless of what you want to say, regardless of the statement you want to make is that you've got a lot of money, or that you're really into watches and you want something that's highly in demand, you don't want something that everyone has, or that you really like green so much so that you probably paid a premium for it. Regardless of which statement you're trying to say, this is definitely a statement watch. And that's something I can really appreciate about it, because regardless of that, of which of those statements you want to make, it definitely says it. And then the third thing, of course, I have to highlight the glide lock clasp. Now, if you've watched any of my other reviews, you'll notice that whenever I have a bracelet watch, I put a lot of emphasis on the clasp, and that's because I feel like it's a really quick and easy way to tell if the company has spent money and time on engineering it well, or whether they just cut corners, and that usually sets the tone for the rest of the watch as well. In this case, clearly Rolex has not cut any corners. When they came out with this clasp, it was one of the best clasps you could get on a dive watch, and it set the bar for clasps going forward. On the Pelagos or on the new Seamaster, both of them feature different ways to match or at least compete with the glide lock clasp in terms of being able to extend the size of the bracelet without having to use tools or add or remove links. And this, at the end of the day, it's still a great system. It's very simple to use. It's very easy to move around and adjust and get the perfect fit. But of course, even something like the Rolex, even something like the Hulk is not perfect. So the 3 cons are as follows. The first one is, for me at least, the bezel. Now, while yes, it is cool that it's green, I do feel like the color, especially compared to that beautiful dial, I feel like the green is a little bit too lifeless in most circumstances. And this is something that I do think also plagues the Smurf as well. If you look at how Omega does its blue ceramic bezels, for example, it just has a little bit more life to it. I don't know enough about how ceramics are made to know what elements of the process have actually influenced that, but for me the end result is that you have this beautiful, beautiful dial, and then a pretty lackluster bezel that doesn't even match its splendor. The second thing that I don't like about the Hulk is that it doesn't have AR coating. And while this is something that plagues every Rolex, on the Hulk it's even more apparent because of the fact that you have that beautiful dial. When you look at watches that have really good AR coating, like my Seamaster for example, where the glass pretty much disappears, you can really appreciate a good dial a lot more. And then the last thing that does kind of let this watch down is its movement. Now don't get me wrong, this is a very reliable movement. It's been in service since 1988. But again, it's been in service since 1988. It's time to move forward. And while they have advanced it and they've modified it over the years, it is time for them to put a new movement in it, give it some new life. Rolex has already shown that they're picking up on this in their GMT line. Their new GMT that they released last year had a 70-hour power reserve. Its Tudor watches are having 70-hour power reserves. So clearly Rolex knows that this is an issue and they're addressing it at, of course, Rolex pace. Slow and steady. And now, last but not least, we need to talk about the price of the Hulk. Something that probably defines it more than it should, but it is where it is. Now the owner of this watch has owned it for a bit over a year now, and they purchased it for 12,000 Australian dollars. The watch in Australia where he lives, it does retail for about 10,500 Australian dollars. But obviously, when we're talking about a Hulk, the retail price is kind of irrelevant because everyone buys it to sell it, and there's a huge waiting list if you want to try and buy it at retail. So what does matter is the market price. Right now, Chrono24 rates the Hulk at selling at an average of 18 to 19,000 Australian dollars. But still, the price is a huge difference. In my opinion, at least, I'm not a fan of premiums. I don't think that they're right, and I don't think that they make sense because at the end of the day, you're paying, in this case, nearly double for a watch that is still technically available for a much lower price at an AD with a warranty, with your name on the card, without having to worry about what it's gone through or worrying about if you need to make a warranty claim if Rolex is going to give you an issue about it. But at the end of the day, the market speaks and money talks. If the market is saying that this watch is worth 18,000 Australian dollars, then it is. But in any case, let me know in the comments below what you think, both of the Hulk, of its price, and also what you think of premiums in general. Do you think that it's normal, that's where it is? Or do you think that the market should adjust itself because it's paying too much for watches that simply aren't worth the money? Let me know in the comments below because I'd love to know what your thoughts are. And if you like the video, please do like the video and share it as well so that other people can see it. And if you like this type of content, make sure that you subscribe to the channel as well because I put out new videos every week and I've got plenty of reviews coming from my trip to Australia, so keep an eye out for those in the future. But in any case, thanks for watching and we'll see you on the next one.